Hello everyone and welcome back to your channel Lawpedia. This is me Jasmine. So in this particular video, we'll be looking forward towards the first aspect of offences against public tranquility. So I'll be just explaining the basic factor जो आपको यहाँ पे note करना है is that the offences against public tranquility that have been mentioned in your chapter 8 of the Indian Penal Code, I will be dividing those in upcoming few videos. So आज के हम अपनी इस वीडियो में कवर करेंगे what is unlawful assembly, what is the punishment prescribed for the same, when do we say a assembly has become unlawful, and how can you charge different persons in a particular unlawful assembly. So we'll be covering all the aspects and all the nuances, all the theory related to your unlawful assembly. So firstly, as I've already elaborated, that chapter 8 of your Indian Penal Code basically deals with offences against public tranquility, and that have been covered from section 141 to section 160 of your Indian Penal Code. So basic is slide mein we are categorizing the offences. First aspect is unlawful assembly, second is rioting, third is assembly of 5 or more persons when ordered to disperse. That means वहाँ पे कौन से offences होते हैं, what is the theory, what are the various aspects that we'll see in that particular video. Fourth is affray, and last is promoting enmity between different classes. Without wasting any more time, let's quickly get started with the topic. So the primary question you can ask over here is, what is an unlawful assembly? For that, we'll be reading our section 141 of the Indian Penal Code, which goes like, an assembly of 5 or more persons is designated as an unlawful assembly if the common object of the persons composing that assembly is. And then you have certain criteria. So यहाँ पे the important terms that you must notice: an assembly of 5 or more persons and common object. Note these points as important. The first common object is overawing a central or a state government or its officials. So basically, if you read, the first point states that to overawe by criminal force or show of criminal force the central or any state government or parliament or the legislature of any state or any public servant in the exercise of lawful power of such public servant. So let's consider a situation whether mere shouting of objectionable slogans or provocative slogans by members, will it amount to overawing? No, that is not covered by this particular sentence. However, when you have pelting of stones, burning of public transport, burning of other vehicles, burning stuff, this would definitely come in the ambit of the first aspect of your section 141. So जब आप एक ऐसा force use करते हैं जहाँ पे you are directly impacting the central or the state government official in terms of pelting stones, in terms of burning the vehicles, in terms of destroying the public property, that will definitely come under the point first of your unlawful assembly of section 141. Now second is to resist the execution of any law or any legal process. Now, what is the second aspect? Second aspect basically कहता है that there should be a law that could be executed and the law was in the process of execution. However, this particular assembly of 5 or more persons has caused resistance to the execution of the law. Now, the third aspect is to commit any mischief or criminal trespass or other offences. So, whenever the assembly has been gathered in order to commit certain mischief or commit any criminal trespass or the other offences, this particular factor will also come in the ambit of unlawful assembly. Further, the fourth aspect is using criminal force to take or obtain possession of any property. So if you'll read the fourth aspect, basically ये कहता है by the means of criminal force or show of criminal force if a person tries to take or obtain the possession of any property or deprive any person of the enjoyment of the right of the property or water or whatever other property is there, then that particular factor will also constitute to be a common object for the unlawful assemblies. And the last, fifth aspect would be to compel any person to do what he is not legally bound to do. That is illegal compulsion. Quickly moving forward to the next aspect, that is who is a member of unlawful assembly. Section 141, what is an unlawful assembly? Section 142, who is a member of an unlawful assembly? Whoever being aware of facts which render an assembly an unlawful assembly, intentionally joins that assembly or continues it, is said to be a member of an unlawful assembly. So the first very important factor over here is being aware of the fact. So the person who is the part of the member of the assembly of 5 or more persons, that particular person should be aware of the fact that the assembly is unlawful. That means assembly establish हुई है with the common object जो कि 5 है stated in your section 141. So let's say a person A joins an assembly of 5 or more persons, let's say assembly of 10 persons sitting at a particular place. A is very much aware that the assembly has been constituted with one of the objectives specified in section 141, and the person A intentionally continues his membership of the assembly, joins the assembly in whatever the assembly is doing, then person A would be said to be a member of unlawful assembly. Quickly moving forward and understanding a very important aspect, which is common object. Now section 141 mein we are talking about common object. What is a common object? Common object is basically that object that must be shared and possessed by all the members of the assembly. Very basic definition. If you are forming a particular assembly, उसका purpose क्या है, उसका design क्या है, very natural that whatever the purpose and design is, that everybody should be aware about it and everybody should know that we are constituting that particular assembly to achieve so and so purpose. Mere joining a particular assembly would not itself make you party of the common object. You need to be aware about कि objective क्या है उस assembly का, and if you are continuing even after understanding that the objective is unlawful as it is mentioned in section 141, then you will be member of the assembly and very much your common object will be unlawful. If only 4 out of 5 assembly persons have the common object and not the fifth one, it is not an unlawful assembly, because the basic criteria or the ingredients is 5 or more persons. Again, as specified, it may be formed at any stage by all or few members of the assembly. Section 149. What's section 149? Section 149 is every member of unlawful assembly guilty of offense committed in prosecution of the common object. Let's quickly read it together. If an offense is committed by any member of an unlawful assembly in prosecution of the common object of that assembly, or such as the members of that assembly knew to be likely to be committed in prosecution of that object, every person who at the time of committing that offense is a member of that assembly is guilty of that offense. So now let me break down the definition for you. Under this particular section, a person who is a member of an unlawful assembly, let's say a person A, we are considering an example ताकि हमें थोड़ा better समझ आए. Let's say a person A is a member of an unlawful assembly. The person A will be made guilty of the offense committed by the other members of the assembly, let's say B, C, D, E, F, in the circumstances mentioned in the section. So अगर section 149 की circumstances fulfill होते हैं, the person A will also be made guilty for the offenses that are committed by the other members of the unlawful assembly. And what are the ingredients? Even though, let me remind you, there is no act itself done by A. So let's say other members of the other 3-4 members of the unlawful assembly actually execute the act. However, A did not do anything, but A knew that the assembly was unlawful. A was very much aware that the common object of the assembly is unlawful according to section 141 of the Indian Penal Code. Despite all these factors, A continued to be the member of the assembly, then A will also be held liable for the offences committed by the other members of the assembly. I hope आपको अभी तक जितना हमने कवर किया है section 141, section 142, common object, who is a member, and now section 149 absolutely clear है. Moving forward, we'll be looking at one factor. Interesting question यहाँ पे आता है. What if the person who is a part of the unlawful assembly does not actually commit the said offense? अभी we understood, let's say A एक member है unlawful assembly का. A ने कुछ भी नहीं किया. A is completely unaware of what actually happened on that particular area, but A is a member of the unlawful assembly. So what happens in that particular scenario? Section 149, person should have understood that the assembly is unlawful. We have already understood that कि A को पता था that the assembly is unlawful and the assembly is likely to commit acts stated in section 141. Actually A ने कुछ commit नहीं किया है, but A understood all the underlying factors of the assembly of the act. Now the person who is a member of an unlawful assembly, even if he does not commit an overt act but shares the common object of such assembly, is liable for the consequences of the same. So I hope you understood. This is an example for your section 149, that how the person will be held liable for the acts of the other members of the assembly. Quickly moving forward to another very important aspect. So now this is a completely different section. However, why am I covering it over here is because often when you read this particular topic, you'll be confused between what is the difference between section 149 and section 34, common object, common intention. Very confusing terms and very similar terms. 34 talks about acts done by several persons in furtherance of common intention. So यहाँ पे we are talking about common intention. So when a criminal act is done by several persons in furtherance of the common intention of all, each of such person is liable for that act in same manner as if it were done by him alone. So I've highlighted this particular important term. You can highlight that too. I will be explaining it with this particular table. So अभी तक I hope आप confused हो चुके हैं with respect to the difference between common intention and common object. Confused? So section 149 talks about common object. Section 34 talks about common intention. Section 149 relates to section 141, which talks about assembly of 5 or more persons. So एक number specified है when you will be reading section 149. आपके पास एक नंबर है कि 5 या 5 से ज़्यादा लोग. However, section 34 में there is no fixed number as such specified कि 5 या 5 से ज़्यादा होने चाहिए, 6 से ज़्यादा. So there is no fixed term as such. That's the basic difference. Now second is common object is specified in section 141. So क्या unlawful है एक असेंबली में एंड क्या ऑब्जेक्ट हैं उस असेंबली के कि वो अनलॉफुल बन जाती है, दोज हैव बीन क्लियरली स्पेसिफाइड इन सेक्शन 141 जो हमने सबसे पहले कवर किए थे, जो कि 5 हैं. हाउएवर कॉमन इंटेंशन कैन बी एनीथिंग एंड दैट कैन बी डिसाइफर्ड अकॉर्डिंग टू द फैक्ट्स एंड सर्कमस्टांसेस ऑफ द केस. यानी कि फैक्ट्स और सर्कमस्टांसेस के बेसिस पे हम देखेंगे कि कॉमन इंटेंशन क्या थी. नाउ मियर मेंबरशिप इज सफिशिएंट. Now, common object के cases में one particular person is aware that the assembly is unlawful, is aware that the assembly is likely to commit so and so act. Now, in this particular scenario, the mere membership can make a person liable under section 149. However, in cases of common intention, some act needs to be done. Simultaneous consensus of mind के बारे में बात करता है. However small, that may be omission to do something, that may be observing, seeing that the act is committed properly, or seeing that the act जो भी offense the people wanted to commit वो हो रहा है, उसको observe करना भी कि वो properly execute हो जाए, that will also come under common intention. So section 149 and 34 both deal with your aspects of constructive criminality. Common intention के केस में आपकी prior meeting of minds होनी चाहिए. You should have a prior understanding that as to what the offense will be, how will it be committed, and your action should be, there should be some consensus of mind which should be developed pehle, or whatever the scenario, however it's developing, there should be some omission or commission by a particular person, and there should be prior meeting of minds. Now section 149 अगर आप डिटेल में पढ़ेंगे, you will understand it creates a specific offense. However, section 34 is mere rule of evidence. There's no distinct offense as such created by section 34. Quickly moving forward to your sections 143 to 145 of the Indian Penal Code. Since they were part of the Unlawful Assembly, I'll just be reading or stating these sections. And section 143 deals with punishment. So, whoever is a member of an unlawful assembly shall be punished with an imprisonment of either description for a term which may extend to 6 months, or with fine, or with both. So section 143 is a punishment section. Moving to section 144, it's joining unlawful assembly armed with deadly weapon. So now when we are talking about deadly weapon, it's but natural that punishment will be slightly increased. So whoever being armed with any deadly weapon or with anything which used as a weapon of offense is likely to cause death is a member of an unlawful assembly shall be punished with an imprisonment of either a description for a term which may extend to 2 years, or with fine, or with both. So यहाँ 2 साल की punishment है. If you're joining an assembly with a deadly weapon or with any weapon which may be used in a normal scenario to cause death, in that particular situations, one may be held liable for 2 years. Quickly moving forward to your section 145, which basically deals with joining or continuing in unlawful assembly knowing that it has been commanded to disperse. यहाँ पे instructions आ गई हैं that please disperse, go, please respect the public order, peace, tranquility, and still that particular individual is joining the assembly. उन cases में क्या punishment होगी? So whoever joins or continues in an unlawful assembly knowing that such unlawful assembly has been commanded in the manner prescribed by law to disperse shall be punished with imprisonment for either description for a term which may extend to 2 years, or with fine, or with both. So यहाँ पे भी 2 years की punishment है. With this we come to the end of our video. So I hope you understood that in a very holistic manner. Any doubts, please put them in the comment section down below. And until the next video, as we always say, stay home, stay safe, and keep learning.